This video is to go over stem and leaf plots. Okay, we started off with asking the question, what is a stem and leaf plot? And we discussed with students that a stem and leaf plot is a quick way to organize large amounts of data. Just another tool to use besides a frequency chart and a dot plot. We talked about how the stem was the first number, the one on the left, and I asked them what they recognized between those numbers and the number in the data chart. And they were able to come up with those are the numbers in the tens place. Then we talked about the leaves being the numbers on the right, and I asked them, well, if the stems are the tens place, what would the leaves be? And they were able to tell me the ones place. Then we talked about how a key is very important, and we circled back to that a little later, but we talked about how it helps us read the stem and leaf chart so that we know that when the 7 is on one side and the 1 is on the other, that means 71. All right. Then we went into step-by-step creating a stem and leaf plot. They had this in a packet in front of them, so they were working on it as I was doing it on the smartboard. This question says, Mr. Jones collected the following data from the test scores of his first two classes. So step number 1, the stems will be the digits in the tens place. In this case, the numbers 6 to 10. The numbers are written in order vertically from smallest to largest. So we kind of talked about how to find the stems. We always find the smallest number in the tens place. In this case, that would be the 6, and the biggest number in the tens place. In this case, that would be the 10. Then I talked with them about how the stem and leaf chart would sorry, I'm struggling for words, would include all of the numbers between 6 and 10, even if they weren't covered in the data. Kind of like on a dot plot, it would have all of the possible choices, not just the ones in the data. The frequency chart is the one that would only have the ones included in the data. So for this, the stems would be 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And we would write that on the stem side. Then we talked about how the stem can have more than one digit, as in the 10. Use 0 for the stem of single digit numbers. And I asked them, do we have any single digit numbers? And they answered, no, we didn't. So that doesn't apply this time, but would in the future. All right, the next step, it says working from left to right in the data set. The leaves are placed, or the digits in the ones place, in the corresponding rows. So this has my stems on there already. And just like we did in the frequency charts, we cross off as we add it to. So I would cross off 100. The 10 is there, so the numbers in red are what I'm writing, and I would write a 0 next to in the leaf section of the 10 stem. Then I go on 65, I'd write the 5. And right now we're just concerned with getting the data into the stem and leaf chart, not necessarily worrying about the order. We'll do that in the next step. So 78, I write my 8, 83, 99, 92, even if they repeat, we write on the second time, like that was the second 3 I wrote in the 8. As many times as it's in the chart is this how many times I would put it in my leaf. So I now have all of my data in my leaves section. I'm going to pull out the hint. And it says mark, circle, or underline each leaf as you record in the plot to ensure you record each one, which I did. Okay, then we go to the next set. Next, the leaves are put in order from least to greatest. So I would just start with the sixes, the sixth stem. And we talked about what's the lowest number, that would be 3, so I would do that one first. And again, I'd cross it off as I put it on, so I make sure I get them all. Then 5, then 7, and then 8. And I did 6 and 7 with them, and then they did 8, 9, and 10 on their own. And again, if there's more than one of the same number, we just put it in more than once. Moving on to my 8s. And I wouldn't recommend for them to do more than one number at a time. I'm just trying to go quicker for the sake of time on the video. Okay. Now there's one thing that I didn't quite do, and it's mainly because it's kind of hard to do on the smartboard, and that's line up the numbers nice and neat, making sure that it's clearly in the right stem line, and if they're lined up vertically, it makes it just a little bit easier to read. And that's easier to do on paper with a pencil than it is on the smartboard. Kind of like on this one, you can see they're lined up nice and neatly, and they're very clearly in a row. Just make your stem and leaf chart very neat is going to help you read it. Step number 4, finally, a key or legend and a title are created. We talked about why do we think a key or a legend is important. And I said, well, if I had just shown you the stem and leaf chart, would you know that 6 and 3 means 63? And most of them are like, no, that wouldn't norm. That's not where our brain would jump. So that's why we need the key to show us which one it is. Which is what that says. Gives the value of the stem and the leaf. I did tell them that they can use any numbers in there. For example, here they use the 7 and the 1 on each side. Here they use further apart, the 8 and the 3. I told them that it doesn't matter as long as they're in the same stem line. That makes sense. And here's the hint I was talking about. Spacing the digits evenly improves reading and interpreting the information in the stem and leaf plot. Okay. So then they did this question as partners. Marla kept a record of her earnings from babysitting for several weeks over the summer. $52, $49, $37, $21, $65, $23, $51, $22, $24, $47, $44, $53, $61. So then we are making a stem and leaf. I talked about, I kind of guided them to set this up. What's the lowest tens place? And they were able to tell me 2. And I said, what's the highest? And they were able to tell me 6. So we knew that our stems would be 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then they created their leaves by crossing off and plugging in. And I'm not going to cross off just for time's sake, because the bigger the video, the harder it is to upload. And I'm sure harder for y'all to download. 65. Okay, So once they have completed the first stem and leaf chart, then they would need to put them in order from least to greatest, and I'm just going to pull down the one that's already done, again for time's sake. And that's them putting it in order, and added a key and a title. I'm going to pause the video so I can get the questions that we answered. Sorry about that. The questions for some reason weren't on the slides, just in the packet that we had. So the first question was, what was the highest fee earned? So we looked at our chart, and our highest leaf was 60. Stem was 60, and the highest leaf in there was 5. So our highest amount earned was $65. The next question was, what was the lowest fee earned? So we looked at our lowest stem, which is 2, and the lowest leaf in there, which is 1. So our lowest fee earned was $21. The next question said, how many earnings are represented in the stem and leaf plot? So all of the leaves represent 1 earning, so we would just count the leaves. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So there were 13 earnings in the stem and leaf chart. Question number 4 was, what was the sum of the 3 highest amounts she earned? So we talked about how the 3 highest amounts were the 65, we already knew. Then the next one is 61, and the next is 53. It said sum, so we added all of those together. Which is $179. So number 4 is $179. Then our last question. I'm sorry, I got lost on my paper. How many times did Maria earn more than $45? And here I discussed the difference between more than 45 and 45 or more. So when it says more than 45, it's just 46 and up. So we drew kind of a line. Here is where 45 would be. So it would be from there to the end. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. And then it asked how many were before that. So then I would count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 came before that. So that's how we would answer questions. Then they had an independent practice to do by themselves. Not really a practice, just another stem and leaf chart to fill in and answer 4 questions about. I do not have that on slides, so I can't show it to you. Next video we'll be using stem and leaf plots with decimals, but we won't get till for a few days, so I'll make that after we have done it in class.